Whose bike did you steal, boy? The question lands sharp in the warm afternoon air, louder than the passing cars and louder than the faint metallic click of a loose bicycle bell trembling under a small hand. Officer Travis Cole stands on the sidewalk outside a corner convenience store, one hand resting on his duty belt, the other gripping the handlebar of a bright red kid's bike that clearly belongs to someone who still needs both feet to push it off the curb. In front of him stands Micah Johnson, 6 years old, barely 4 feet tall, his backpack straps pulled tight across his shoulders like he is trying to make himself smaller inside them. The boy's eyes move from the officer's badge to the bike and back again, confused more than anything else. The sun hangs low over Maple Street, turning the chrome spokes of the bicycle into flashes of white light every time the wheel moves a fraction of an inch. Micah's fingers tighten around the rubber grip as if the bike might disappear if he lets go. "I didn't steal it," he says quietly, his voice thin but steady, the way a child speaks when he knows he is telling the truth but senses the world has already decided otherwise. Officer Cole exhales through his nose like he has heard this story 1,000 times before. To him, it looks simple: a kid, a bike, and a report that came across the radio a few minutes ago about a missing one. The officer tilts the bike slightly away from the boy and studies it like it is evidence. The red paint is new, glossy, untouched by scratches. The training wheels are still bolted on tight. It does not look stolen, not exactly, but something about the scene in front of him has already settled into his mind as a problem he thinks he understands. A few shoppers begin drifting toward the storefront window, curiosity pulling them closer. One woman pauses halfway across the parking lot, grocery bag in one hand, phone slowly rising in the other. Micah shifts his weight on the concrete. His sneakers are dusty from riding circles in the small parking lot while he waited for the babysitter inside to finish paying for snacks. The boy glances at the bike again, then back up at the officer. "My dad bought it for my birthday," he says, swallowing hard, pointing carefully at the seat like the detail might matter. "My name is under there." The officer does not bend down to check. Instead, he reaches for the radio on his shoulder, the static crackling to life as he calls something in. The sound seems huge in the quiet street. Micah's small hand slips from the handlebar as the bike rolls half an inch toward the officer's side. The bell rings once, a tiny silver sound that almost disappears in the open air. The boy looks around as if someone nearby might explain what is happening. Cars pass. A door chime rings inside the store. The camera phones keep rising. And somewhere in the distance, the faint rumble of another patrol car begins to grow closer. Micah Johnson stays exactly where he is on the sidewalk, the heat from the late afternoon sun warming the top of his backpack, while the concrete beneath his sneakers still holds the cooler shade from the building behind him. The red bicycle now stands slightly tilted toward Officer Travis Cole. Its front will turn sideways like it no longer knows which direction it belongs to. Micah watches the officer's hand resting firmly on the handlebar and feels a strange knot forming in his chest, the kind that children feel when something unfair begins unfolding but they do not yet understand how to stop it. The parking lot outside the convenience store smells faintly like asphalt and spilled soda. A breeze slides down Maple Street and spins one dry leaf across the pavement, tapping lightly against the training wheel before rolling away again. Micah's eyes follow it for a moment, then drift back to the bike. That bicycle is bright red, the kind that shines almost like candy in the sunlight, with silver handlebars and a small black seat that still looks brand new. His father had lifted it out of the back of the truck just 3 days earlier, setting it carefully in their driveway, while Micah stared like it was the greatest thing he had ever seen in his life. Micah remembers the sound of his father tightening the bolts on the training wheels with a wrench, the metal clinking softly while the evening light turned everything gold. His father had crouched down beside the bike and smiled the calm, steady smile Micah always trusted. He had told Micah that every bike deserved a name and every rider should know exactly which one was theirs. That was when he flipped the seat up and wrote Micah Johnson in small silver letters underneath, slow and careful so the marker would not smear. Now Micah looks at the same seat again and points to it with a trembling finger, hoping the detail might matter to the tall man in uniform standing over him. The officer glances down briefly but does not move to check. Instead, he shifts his weight and scans the parking lot as if the real answer might appear somewhere else. A few people have gathered closer now. A man leaning against a pickup truck lowers his sunglasses and watches quietly. The woman with the grocery bag continues recording, her phone steady in front of her face. No one says anything yet. The silence feels heavy, like the air before a summer storm. Micah swallows and tries again, speaking louder this time even though his voice still shakes. He explains that he rode the bike here after school. He explains that the babysitter is inside the store buying orange juice. He explains that he has been practicing riding in small circles because he is still learning how to balance when he turns. Every word comes out slowly, carefully, as if each sentence is a small step across a narrow bridge. Officer Cole listens with the expression of someone who believes the story is already finished. The radio on his shoulder crackles again, a distant voice responding to the call he made earlier. The officer speaks back into it calmly, describing the situation in a tone that sounds routine, almost bored. Micah does not understand the words coming through the static, but he understands the feeling that something larger is moving toward them now. Down the street, the faint rumble of an approaching patrol car grows louder, rolling slowly closer like a low drumbeat echoing along the quiet afternoon road. The sound of the approaching patrol car grows clearer until the vehicle finally turns onto Maple Street and rolls slowly toward the small gathering outside the convenience store, its tires humming softly against the pavement as it eases into the edge of the parking lot. The afternoon sun glints across the windshield, briefly hiding the driver's face behind a sheet of white reflection before the car settles to a quiet stop. Micah Johnson watches the car with wide eyes, unsure whether the arrival will make things better or worse. To him, it simply means more uniforms, more adults, more voices that sound confident while he feels smaller by the second. Officer Travis Cole shifts his stance beside the red bicycle, straightening his shoulders slightly as the second officer steps out of the patrol car. The door closes with a calm, solid click that echoes across the quiet lot. The new officer walks over with a measured pace, scanning the scene the way officers are trained to do, noticing the bike, the child, the phones being held up by a few people who have drifted closer. For a moment, nobody speaks. The breeze carries the faint smell of gasoline from the street and rustles the leaves in a narrow tree planted beside the store entrance. Micah looks down at the ground, tracing a faint crack in the concrete with the tip of his sneaker. His chest rises and falls quickly, but he keeps reminding himself of what his father always says when things feel confusing. Tell the truth and stay calm. That is what Micah tries to do now. The second officer glances at Cole and asks quietly what is going on. Cole gestures toward the bike and explains that there was a report earlier about a missing red bicycle somewhere nearby, and that he found the boy standing with one that matches the description. His voice carries the tone of someone who believes the explanation is already complete. The second officer looks at Micah for a long second, noticing the oversized backpack, the training wheels, the nervous way the boy keeps rubbing his hands together. Micah senses the attention and gathers his courage again. He lifts his head and says in a soft but clear voice that the bike belongs to him, and that his father wrote his name under the seat. The words come slowly, each one carefully placed as if they must travel a long distance before reaching someone willing to listen. Around them, the small group of bystanders grows slightly larger. A man in a baseball cap steps a little closer, folding his arms while watching the conversation. The woman with the grocery bag continues holding her phone steady, the tiny red recording light glowing like a quiet witness. Inside the convenience store, the bell above the door jingles as another customer exits, pausing when they notice the unusual stillness outside. Officer Cole glances briefly at the bicycle seat, but again does not check beneath it. Instead, he looks toward the patrol car radio, waiting for more information to come through. The radio crackles again, with a distant voice reporting that no confirmed owner has yet been identified for the missing bike mentioned earlier. The words float through the air, but do not settle the moment. Micah hears the static and wonders if someone somewhere might finally explain that he is not in trouble at all. Yet the tension remains, stretching quietly across the parking lot like a thin, invisible wire, and in the distance another vehicle begins turning onto Maple Street, moving steadily closer to the scene. The quiet tension in the parking lot stretches longer than anyone expected, the kind of silence that makes every small sound feel louder than it should. A car passes slowly along Maple Street, its tires humming across the warm asphalt, while the late afternoon sun shifts just enough to cast longer shadows across the concrete outside the convenience store. Micah Johnson stands very still beside the red bicycle, his eyes fixed on the black seat where he knows his name is written underneath. The letters are small, but he remembers every stroke of the silver marker because he watched his father write them only a few nights ago. That memory feels important now, almost like proof that the world should recognize if someone simply looks close enough. Officer Travis Cole remains beside the bicycle with a posture that suggests certainty, even though the situation around him has grown more complicated than he expected. The second officer who arrived moments earlier studies the scene again, glancing between Micah, the bicycle, and the quiet group of onlookers who continue standing nearby. The phones recording the moment remain raised, their cameras silently capturing every word and movement. A breeze moves through the parking lot again, fluttering the corner of a small paper receipt that is blown near the curb. Micah takes a slow breath and gathers the courage to speak one more time. He explains again that the bicycle belongs to him, that his father bought it 3 days ago, and that the silver letters under the seat spell his full name. His voice is still small, but steadier now, as if repeating the truth has begun to give him a little strength. The second officer tilts his head slightly, considering the detail. He steps closer to the bike and studies it carefully, noticing the spotless paint, the brand new tires, and the training wheels that show barely anywhere from the pavement. It looks exactly like the kind of bicycle a parent would buy for a child who is just learning how to ride. Before he can say anything, the convenience store door opens with a sharp chime. A woman in her 20s steps out holding a bottle of orange juice and a small bag of chips. She pauses immediately when she sees the officers and the crowd. Her expression shifts from confusion to concern as her eyes land on Micah. She walks quickly toward him, her voice filled with surprise as she asks what is happening. Micah looks up at her with relief and says quietly that the officer thinks the bicycle is not his. The woman turns toward Officer Cole and explains that she is the babysitter and that she watched Micah ride the bicycle here after school. Her words add another layer to the moment, another piece of the puzzle that does not quite match the accusation floating in the air. Around them, the small crowd shifts again, murmuring softly. The second officer glances toward Cole, waiting for a response, while the radio on his shoulder crackles faintly with another distant message. Down the street, the vehicle that had turned onto Maple Street earlier continues approaching, its dark silhouette slowly becoming clearer as it nears the parking lot, where the quiet standoff still holds everyone in place. The woman kneels beside Micah Johnson and gently places a hand on his shoulder, her voice calm but firm as she explains again that she watched him ride the bicycle here only minutes earlier, that she stepped inside the store for less than 5 minutes to buy orange juice and a snack, and that the bike never left the front sidewalk. The small boy looks up at her with relief, as if hearing an adult confirm the truth makes the ground beneath his feet feel a little steadier. Officer Travis Cole listens with a tight expression that suggests he does not want the situation to change direction now that he has already decided how it should end. The red bicycle remains tilted beside him, its chrome spokes catching the sunlight and sending thin flashes of light across the pavement every time the breeze nudges the wheels slightly. The second officer studies the scene more carefully now, his gaze moving from the babysitter to the boy and then to the bicycle seat again. Around them, the small crowd continues to grow. A man in a gray shirt leans against a nearby sedan, while 2 teenagers stand near the edge of the parking lot whispering quietly to each other, both holding phones raised at chest height. The soft murmur of their voices mixes with the distant traffic moving along Maple Street. Micah shifts his weight again and wipes his hands against the sides of his backpack straps, trying to keep them from shaking. The babysitter gently reminds the officers that the boy is only 6 years old and that there must be a misunderstanding. Her voice is not angry, but there is a firmness in it now that was not there before. The second officer nods slightly and glances again toward the bicycle seat, clearly considering the small detail Micah mentioned earlier. Officer Cole exhales slowly and looks down at the bike as if weighing whether the moment is worth continuing or ending. The radio on his shoulder crackles again with a faint update, but the message still does not confirm any exact match for the missing bicycle that had been mentioned earlier. The information hangs in the air without resolving anything. A warm gust of wind slides through the lot and carries the smell of fried food from a diner down the street. The sunlight now reaches farther across the pavement, stretching the long shadows of the officers toward the store entrance. Micah keeps staring at the seat, silently hoping someone will finally turn it over and see the name written underneath. Just then the dark vehicle that had been approaching along Maple Street slowly pulls closer to the parking lot entrance. It is not a patrol car with flashing lights or a loud engine. It moves quietly, almost deliberately, before easing toward the curb near the sidewalk. The crowd notices it first, several heads turning in the same direction. The second officer glances over his shoulder as well, recognizing the vehicle immediately even before the door opens. The engine shuts off and the door swings open with a calm, solid sound. A tall man steps out wearing a simple dark jacket, his expression focused as his eyes move from the gathering crowd to the small boy beside the red bicycle. The moment he begins walking toward them, the atmosphere in the parking lot shifts in a way that even Micah can feel, though he does not yet understand why. The tall man closes the car door behind him and stands still for a moment beside the curb, taking in the quiet scene that has gathered outside the convenience store. The late afternoon light falls across his shoulders while the soft wind moves through the parking lot, rustling the leaves of the small tree near the entrance. From where he stands, he can already see the red bicycle, the two uniformed officers, and the small boy beside them, who looks far too young to be the center of so much attention. Micah Johnson does not notice the man at first. His eyes remain fixed on the bicycle seat, the place where he knows his name is written in careful silver letters. The moment feels stretched and fragile, like a long breath that nobody wants to release yet. Around him the quiet crowd shifts slightly as several people notice the newcomer stepping away from the dark vehicle. The man begins walking across the parking lot with calm, steady steps. He does not hurry. His expression remains composed, almost thoughtful, as if he is observing before deciding what to say. Officer Travis Cole notices him next. At first it is only a quick glance, the kind officers make when someone approaches a scene. But then the officer's posture changes almost immediately, his shoulders tightening slightly, as recognition flashes across his face. The second officer sees the reaction and turns as well, his eyes widening just enough to confirm what he already suspects. The man continues forward, the sound of his shoes on the pavement quiet but unmistakable. Micah finally senses the movement and lifts his head. For a brief second his worried expression softens, though he still does not fully understand why the presence of this man feels different from everyone else around him. The babysitter follows Micah's gaze and steps back slightly, instinctively making room as the man approaches the bicycle. The small crowd grows even quieter now. Phones remain raised, but the whispers fade into silence. The man stops a few feet from the red bicycle and studies it carefully, his eyes moving from the handlebars to the training wheels and then to the small boy standing beside it. His voice, when he finally speaks, is calm and measured, carrying easily across the still parking lot as he asks what seems to be happening here. The second officer answers first, explaining the situation in a careful tone, mentioning the report about a missing bicycle and the uncertainty about who it belongs to. The man listens without interrupting. His gaze remains steady, thoughtful, absorbing every detail. Micah shifts closer to the bicycle again and gathers the courage to speak one more time. He explains softly that the bike belongs to him, and that his name is written under the seat because his father said every rider should know which bicycle is theirs. The man looks down at the seat as the boy speaks. For a moment, he says nothing at all. The sunlight glints along the silver bolts of the training wheels while the breeze nudges the front tires slightly, causing the small bell to ring with a gentle metallic chime. The man kneels beside the bicycle, his movements slow and deliberate, and reaches beneath the seat, where the smooth black plastic curves toward the frame. His fingers pause there for just a second before turning the seat upward so the underside faces the light. The bicycle seat tilts upward in the man's hands, and the underside catches the sunlight, revealing a line of silver letters written slowly and carefully across the smooth black plastic. For a brief moment, no one speaks. The parking lot grows so quiet that the faint buzz of traffic from the far end of Maple Street sounds distant and hollow, like it belongs to another place entirely. The man leans slightly closer, reading the small handwriting without rushing. The letters are clear and unmistakable, Micah Johnson. The silver ink glints softly under the afternoon sun. The man remains kneeling beside the bicycle for another second as the truth settles into the silence around him. Then he slowly lowers the seat back into place and rises to his feet. His eyes move first to the small boy standing beside the bicycle, then to Officer Travis Cole. The shift in the officer's expression is impossible to miss now. What had been firm confidence only minutes ago has faded into something tighter, more uncertain. The second officer watches quietly, understanding the meaning of the moment before a single word is spoken. The tall man straightens his jacket slightly and steps closer to Micah, his voice calm and steady when he finally speaks again. He asks the boy gently if the name under the seat is his. Micah nods quickly, his shoulders lifting with a small breath of relief, the tension that had been sitting in his chest finally loosening just a little. The man gives a small nod in return, then turns his attention toward the officers. His posture remains composed, but there is a quiet authority in the way he holds himself now, something that causes the entire scene to shift in tone. The second officer instinctively stands a little straighter. Officer Cole clears his throat, but does not immediately speak. Around them, the bystanders remain silent, their phones still raised as they record the unfolding moment. The babysitter watches closely, her hand resting lightly on Micah's shoulder. The man's voice remains calm as he repeats the boy's name slowly, almost thoughtfully, as if confirming what he already knows. Then he reaches into the inside pocket of his jacket and removes a simple leather wallet. When he opens it, the polished badge and identification inside catch the sunlight with a quiet metallic shine. Several people in the crowd inhale sharply as the realization spreads through the small gathering. The second officer immediately recognizes the badge and straightens to attention without thinking. Officer Cole's face tightens as the meaning of the moment settles in completely. The man closes the wallet again and looks directly at the officer who had been holding the bicycle only minutes earlier. His voice remains calm, but the authority in it is unmistakable when he introduces himself clearly as Chief Daniel Johnson. Then his gaze shifts briefly back toward the boy beside the bicycle, the smallest hint of warmth softening his expression as he says quietly that Micah Johnson is his son. The quiet that follows Chief Daniel Johnson's words settles across the parking lot like a sudden shift in the air before rain. No one moves at first. The small group of bystanders remains frozen in place, their phones still lifted, but their whispers completely gone now. Officer Travis Cole stands beside the red bicycle with a stiffness that was not there before, his hand slowly releasing the handlebar as the weight of the moment becomes impossible to ignore. The second officer has already straightened fully, his posture respectful, his eyes moving quickly between the chief and the situation unfolding in front of him. Chief Johnson does not raise his voice. He does not step forward in anger. Instead, he looks calmly at the bicycle again, then down at Micah, who is standing quietly beside the frame with both hands wrapped around his backpack straps. The boy looks up at his father with a mixture of relief and confusion, as if the long stretch of uncertainty has finally reached the edge of something safer. Chief Johnson's expression softens for a brief moment as he places one steady hand on Micah's shoulder, a simple gesture that tells the boy everything is going to be all right. Then the chief turns his attention back toward the officers. His voice remains measured and professional as he explains that situations involving children require patience, careful listening, and confirmation before conclusions are made. The words are calm, but the meaning behind them carries weight. Officer Cole shifts slightly, clearing his throat as if searching for the right response. The confidence he held earlier has disappeared completely, replaced by a tight silence that everyone present can feel. The second officer speaks first, acknowledging the misunderstanding and explaining that the situation will be documented properly. Chief Johnson nods once, accepting the statement without adding unnecessary tension. The babysitter beside Micah exhales quietly, the worry that had been sitting in her face finally easing as the truth has become impossible to ignore. Around them, the onlookers lower their phones one by one, the energy of the moment slowly dissolving now that the situation has been clarified. The warm afternoon light continues sliding across the pavement, reflecting softly from the chrome spokes of the bicycle. Chief Johnson bends slightly and steadies the bike so it stands upright again, then gently rolls it back toward Micah. The boy reaches out and grips the handlebars with both hands, holding the familiar red frame as if reclaiming something that never should have been questioned in the first place. The chief kneels briefly beside him, his voice quiet enough that only those closest can hear when he asks if Micah is all right. The boy nods quickly, his shoulders relaxing now that the tension has finally lifted. Chief Johnson rises again and looks once more at the officers, his calm expression unchanged as he reminds them that trust in a community is built through fairness and attention to the smallest details. No anger fills his voice, only certainty. The message is clear without needing to be spoken loudly. The parking lot grows peaceful again, the moment slowly returning to the ordinary rhythm of a late afternoon on Maple Street. The late afternoon sunlight settles gently across Maple Street as the quiet tension that once filled the parking lot fades into something calmer and steadier. The small group of onlookers slowly begins to drift away, conversations returning in low voices as people tuck their phones back into their pockets and step toward their cars. The ordinary sounds of the neighborhood return as if the street itself has taken a long breath and finally released it. Micah Johnson stands beside his red bicycle, both hands resting on the handlebars while he looks up at his father with wide, thoughtful eyes. Only a few minutes earlier the moment had felt confusing and heavy, like a storm cloud hanging low over his small world. Now the air feels lighter again. Chief Daniel Johnson kneels beside him once more, his expression calm and warm in a way that only Micah truly recognizes. The chief reaches down and straightens the strap of the boy's backpack, brushing a small piece of dust from the fabric with a careful motion. His voice is quiet and steady when he asks Micah if he remembers what he told him the day they brought the bicycle home. The boy thinks for a second, then nods slowly. His father had said that honesty and patience would always carry more strength than anger. Chief Johnson smiles faintly and taps the side of the bicycle seat, where the silver letters remain hidden underneath. Micah glances down at the bike again, and a small smile begins to return to his face. Nearby, the babysitter thanks the chief quietly before stepping back toward the store entrance, still holding the bottle of orange juice that had started the entire moment. The two officers remain near the edge of the sidewalk, speaking quietly with each other, their earlier confidence replaced with a much more thoughtful silence. Chief Johnson stands and places one hand lightly on Micah's shoulder. Together they walk a few steps toward the curb where the boy had first stopped his bicycle earlier that afternoon. The sunlight reflects gently off the chrome spokes while a soft breeze moves through the leaves above them. Micah climbs onto the seat and places both feet carefully on the pedals. For a moment he hesitates, looking back toward his father as if asking a silent question. Chief Johnson nods once with quiet reassurance. The boy pushes forward and the bicycle begins to roll slowly across the pavement, the training wheels clicking softly against the ground with each turn. Chief Johnson walks beside him for a few steps, one hand steady on the back of the seat until the bike finds its balance. The small bell on the handlebar rings once as Micah turns slightly toward the sidewalk, the sound light and clear in the peaceful afternoon air. Within seconds the boy is riding in a gentle circle near the edge of the lot, the red bicycle moving exactly the way it was meant to. Chief Johnson watches for a moment with a calm expression before turning toward the street again, the quiet scene behind him now restored to the simple rhythm of an ordinary day.